The new millennium saw Mustang return to its roots. Labeled as retrofuturism, Mach 1s were back and the Cobra returned. If life begins at 40, then Mustang was about to be reborn. Monogrammed floor mats and a 40th anniversary logo beside the shifter accentuated the regained esteem. Power was back in the Mustang playbook.
Candy apple red and ready. Reassembly is an exciting time for any builder, but the excitement has to be tempered with care. Painted parts are too delicate to toss around.
From last time then when we worked on the suspension, it was mocked up, nothing was really tight, so at that point and looking at the way that it looked under the car, I could choose a color that would go well with the candy red that we used on the body and the underside of the car. So we painted all the suspension components and had them prepped and ready for today's install. We started the rear install of the suspension with the centerpiece of the Watts linkage, and then we went ahead and put in the lower control arms, hooked them to the rear brackets that hold the shocks and the control arms. Then we put in the center section.
The hardest part of installing the 3-link suspension components in the rear end is to position the actual third member axle housing up inside there without scratching anything. It's very difficult, it's a heavy piece, and we were able to manhandle it and get it up in there without damaging anything.
The axle housing we installed was an 8-inch rear end, but it also has 31 spline axles. So that makes it, one of a kind right now. And we're going to test this and see how it works, but it's a really good setup because you get a lighter rear end. It's easier for the engine and trans to turn it. It takes less horsepower, but yet it's very, very strong.
Giving aid to the smaller differential is a reinforced suspension and stiffening system that keeps as much power as possible going to where it belongs.
I would say, there's usually an easy side of a job and a hard side of a job. And for some reason, the hard side of the job never materialized. We were able to go right through it and take care of business.
Sometimes it's the fact that reassembly takes the guesswork away. Other times, you're just plain lucky. Some things shouldn't be overanalyzed.
First of all, we installed the steering rack underneath the car, did up all the hardware on that, and then we moved to the lower control arms. In '67, the brake setups, you would have had a couple of options for the front at least. You would have had drum brakes or disc brakes. They could have been a 4-piston depending on which ones you ordered, and the rear would have been drum brakes. The drum in its day was a very good brake, but now with the performance driving that people want to do and the look behind the big wheels that we're going to use, we definitely want to use disc brakes.
Upgrading the stopping system on any vintage car is a sensible tactic. No one is proud when they slide through an intersection smoking some old-school brake shoes.
The original sway bar on the Mustang was probably somewhere in the vicinity of a 3/4-inch sway bar. We went with a 7/8 or a 1-inch, depending on how I want the car to handle. So whatever it is now, we might try it and then even upgrade it again. Because we were so fortunate to mock up this car again before we went ahead with it, the front suspension went really, really well. We did that, I think, in about 37 minutes. We had a little side bet going, so we were pretty proud of that.
Who says you have to make a living just from customers?
Ken came in today and helped us install the new Boss 750 EFI system.
It's a fuel injection system that allows you to bolt on to an older intake manifold.
I think the first thing we need to do, Brian, is figure out what we're going to do today to get this engine in the car. The engine was supplied by Summit Racing. When we got it out of the crate, we decided they normally come with a black block, so we decided to paint it red, color match to the car. It's a 302 cubic inch, making about 350 horsepower. So it's not made to be a super screamer, but really nice, dependable driver. After we got the engine set up on the floor, ready to install the parts, we started with the intake manifold, cleaning that all up, getting the gaskets ready with the silicone sealant and installing that. Then I believe we went through to the valve covers. The Serpentine setup is from March. They make a really nice unit in the fact that it's a direct bolt-on, lightweight, looks good, it comes complete with all the hardware that you need, and it gives the engine a more upgraded look. After we got the engine wrapped up, we went on to the clutch and the flywheel. The clutch and the flywheel was supplied by Southland Clutch. And we went ahead and installed that, no problems at all. It was a 26 spline to match up to the transmission. Louis went ahead and painted up the bell housing for us, so that's all done. Hey, we had a surprise visit from Tony at Astro. He happened to be in town and dropped by right at the right minute when we were ready to put the transmission onto the back of the bell housing. Because generally a T5 is a lighter transmission and it can't handle the horsepower and torque, but with the way that Astro builds it, it is now a beefier transmission, but it's still lightweight, and that's what we're after for this build. Installing an engine and a transmission into a painted car is usually fairly difficult because there's lots of areas that can get hit and marked, you know, and coming in contact with each other. So the number one thing with that core support removed that we designed earlier, now we can come in on a better angle so the transmission fits through the tunnel. But in doing so, still the precautions were made. We put plenty of wrap around everything to make sure that I did not nick any of the paint or do any scratches. After we had the engine sitting in place and we had the transmission mount mocked up and, you know, the bolts weren't exactly tight yet, but everything was in place, we had to go ahead and install our adjustable motor mount kit. Again, if the car was just like a little bit higher on the rack or a little bit lower, it would have made the job easier, so we'll be sure not to put it in that location again.
Oh, I don't know. I think eye level is the perfect height to admire this package.